Charles Dickens was a prolific and highly influential 19th century British author. He penned such acclaimed works as Oliver Twist, A Christmas Carol, David Copperfield, and Great Expectations. Charles Dickens was a British novelist, journalist, editor, illustrator, and social commentator. Among his accomplishments, he has been lauded for providing a stark portrait of the Victorian-era underclass, helping to bring about societal change. When Dickens died of a stroke, he left his final novel, The Mystery of Edwin Drood, unfinished. Throughout his career, Dickens published a total of 15 novels. David Copperfield was the first work of its kind. No one had ever written a novel that simply followed a character through his everyday life. From May 1849 to November 1850, Dickens published the book in monthly installments, with the full novel form published in November 1850. In writing it, Dickens tapped into his own personal experiences from his difficult childhood to his work as a journalist. Although David Copperfield is not considered Dickens' best work, it was his personal favorite. It's also called his semi-autobiographical novel. David Meets His Aunt is an excerpt from the book, which is about everyday life of a young boy called David. His aunt, Miss Beth Trotwood, had wanted the baby to be a girl. So when a boy, David, was born, she left in an angry mood and never looked back at the family. David's father died and his mother remarried. David's stepfather did not treat well and was sent to a workhouse which he did not like. He ran away and started looking for his only living relative, that was Mrs. Trotwood. Summary: when David ran away, he started looking for Miss Trotwood everywhere and thought of inquiring Mrs. Trotwood, his only living relative and only hope. He inquired among boatmen and then from horse carriage drivers. They did not take him seriously and humiliated him. The shopkeepers did not want to listen to him because his appearance was miserable and they believed that he was a beggar. They refused to talk to him. He was in need of food and shelter, but he was left with no money and nothing in hand to sell. He was feeling dejected and impoverished, and he seemed far from his destination. With this, days passed by with no hope of getting any clue about Mrs. Trotwood. And one day, he sat on a step of an empty shop at the street corner, and a fly driver passed by whose face seemed to be good-natured, and David thought of asking him the same question, of which he was tired of asking around. The man, after hearing the name Trotwood, responded positively, and he seemed to know her. He described her as an old lady with stiff back who always carried a bag and was rude and unfriendly. David acknowledged the undoubted accuracy of the description because he was desperately in need to meet her. The flight driver pointed towards the exact direction where David could meet his aunt. He also gave him a penny, and David bought a loaf with it. He walked on a good distance and reached a little general shop, and he thought of inquiring about Mrs. Trotwood from that shopkeeper who was busy weighing the rice. A young girl at the shop turned her head and told him that Mrs. Trotwood was her mistress and asked David to follow her if he wants to know the exact address. She left him at the gate because she did not want to be blamed for bringing David to Mrs. Trotwood's house. David's condition was miserable. The soles of his shoes had shed bit by bit. His hat was crushed and trousers tainted with heat. After some time, a lady came out with gardening gloves on her hands and was wearing an apron with a pocket. She had also a knife in her hand, and she had come out for gardening. She asked David to leave and got busy with her gardening, but David mustered some courage and pleaded her to listen to him. And he started crying, and he told her that he was his nephew and gave all the details of his address and the family. Mrs. Trotwood stared at him until David started sobbing and crying. She got up and, in a great hurry, grabbed him by the collar, and she took him inside, fed him, and made him comfortable on the sofa. He was bathed and his room was ready. Cuddled up in snow-white sheets, he remembered all the lonely places, and he prayed that no one in the world should be homeless, or he himself shouldn't be homeless again in life. He was comfortable. David strives hard in his life for his survival, and he is searching for true happiness and support, which he never had after his mother died. Symbols of good and evil are clear in the text. People judge him by his appearance and never show a gesture to help. Thank you.